Alright, hey guys, Hi-Fri here. Quick video tonight. So I bought these pair of DIY or clone or uh, what do you call them? Shoot, one second. Replica. Sorry, that was the word I was looking for. So DIY or clone or replica, whatever you want to call it. IE300s. Now these recently appeared on AliExpress, and I didn't really want to pay the 60 bucks or 100 bucks or whatever it is for the 600s. And I already have a pair of 900s that a friend of mine gave me to check out. So actually, let me pull those out real quick. Alright, so this is a replica IE900. And you can see the shell is actually pretty nice. The machining looks good. Um, I mean, all in all, it looks decent quality. You see the custom mesh or whatever there. You know, you could never tell really that it's a replica just by looking at the front of it. But anyway, these things are all over AliExpress, and so I eventually broke down and bought one. These were not the cheapest. These were not the most expensive. They were like somewhere in the middle. And the page for these also had the best reviews, which looking back, I think may have been fake reviews or bot reviews on AliExpress. And I'll get into that a little bit later, but real quick, before I tear these down, I just wanted to share with you guys. These are a couple custom in-ear monitors that I just made. You can see this kind of shoddy looking logo my vinyl printer or vinyl cutter made. Um, I still thought it looked kind of cool, so I figured, yeah, what the hell, why not? I'll use them. But anyway, it kind of, I don't know, it kind of ties in. It looks almost like a spider web or like just knife marks or something, like somebody got cut up. But and you see the red accents. I was originally gonna do like blood dripping down the edges here, but it was just too much work. So, but anyway, so these are my very first pair of custom in-ear monitors that I made. They have 8 balanced armatures inside, and anyway, somebody asked me a long time ago, over a year ago, if I could make them in-ear monitors, and so I said yes, just pay me for the drivers. They did, and it's been a very, very, very long, tedious process, but I eventually made it. So, yeah, these have. There's. I don't even want to go into all the mishaps and issues and whatnot that I've had building these, but I've learned a ton about making IEMs in general, and especially making custom in-ear monitors. And seeing these myself, I'm actually interested in perhaps making a pair for myself as well. I have another pair for his friends sitting over there. They're not quite finished yet, but they are getting there. And then I also have a pair of monitors that he sent me a while back, and these got too small to fit in his ears, so I resized them. So you'll notice if the face plates look a little funny, like resin on the edges there and stuff. That's because I did a what I call a build-up or a resizing, where instead of reshelling the IEMs, I plopped them into a mold and then just filled it with resin to change the profile or the size of the IEMs. So very curious to see if these fit him. They are the same shape as the customs that I made. Not 100%, but they are almost identical because they use the same molds. But yeah, so I'm very curious to see how they fit. But anyway, all that being said, let's get to this IE300. Now, I'm just gonna cut to the chase and say I do not recommend these to anybody. They are not worth the 38 or 40 bucks. The only thing that I get out of them they're very bass heavy, but the cable is a decent for like a replacement cable, and you get a little case. So I mean, if you want to use the shells for another driver, they're glued, so you can't really replace the drivers. I mean, you could technically, and I'll show you because I did take one of them apart, but I did measure them. The graphs are awful. It's just a roller coaster. There's no peanut gain. There's like serious crazy upper mids, peaks galore. It just, yeah, it's not a good looking graph. But anyway, and there's a channel imbalance. Anyway, yeah, they're just not good. But I figured, this would be an interesting video, and hey, maybe Sennheiser will see this and want to send me some legitimate ones that I can take a look at. So anyway, obviously this is fake. A couple things, I'm not really sure exactly what to point out to you guys just yet. The font looks interesting. I don't think this is the correct font. The logo placement and stuff, those are obvious tells, things to look for. Misspells, any kind of like misspelled words or anything like that, you can look for. But other than that, the box looks pretty legit. What I can assume is, and I think Sennheiser was smart about it. So Sennheiser has been around. Sorry, I'm just turning off my AC. Sennheiser has been around for a very long time, and they, I believe, manufacture their own drivers. If not, they have a company very close to them who manufactures their drivers. But that being said, their drivers are very proprietary, and so it's not something easy to clone. Now, the Chinese companies, say one of them manufactures the shell or does the machining, they can take scans and take measurements and all that stuff, and they can easily replicate the shells for the most part. And I'll show you the difference in these, because these are not very close. I mean, they're similar, but they're not like close to the original. But anyway, so they can get relatively close in appearance, but they cannot clone the drivers because they do not have access to the factories that produce the drivers. Those are strictly off limits, and I'm not sure where they're manufactured, but I do not believe they're manufactured in China. I think the packaging materials may be. I think maybe the housing, some of the housings may be. I know the IE600 uses a special, like a 3D printed metal chassis, which is made by this one company. Now, there is a way to replicate that look by using a specific casting process, and I think that's how they did it with the IE600 clones, or they have access to those printers and they just printed it themselves, because they can have the same printers as this other company. But anyway, I believe the drivers are proprietary, so you will not see those drivers in any of these DIY or replica IEMs. So we open up the packaging. We're greeted with a whole bunch of foam. We got the IEMs here. We got the cable. We got this thin cardstock. Now, I don't know if this is the same on the originals, but it is pretty thin. You can see it's kind of like not folded correctly. There's like some ripples and stuff in it. So cheap packing materials. This could be the same on the original. I'm not sure. We have this case here with this Sennheiser branding. Now, I believe that this manufacturer that makes the case probably makes the legitimate case, because this case actually feels like it could be legitimate, even though it's not, but it feels like it could be. And then we also have some replica ear tips, and I will show you guys the ear tips. Also, we have this cleaner with the Sennheiser branding on it, and that could also be legitimate. So I think Sennheiser does rely on Chinese manufacturers for some of these non-specific, cleaning items and cases and whatnot. But the case is pretty decent. The little cleaning tool seems legit. These ear tips are obviously not. and I will show you why. So we have a few sets of silicone, and then we have a couple sets of foams. Now the foams are decent. They feel very pliable and squishy, so nice quality foams. So we got a couple more here. So it looks like we get 3 sets of each. We get 3 sets of foams and 3 sets of silicones. But anyway, so these oh shoot, where'd it go? I dropped it right there. So the silicone tips all have this star-like, or phone, like if you ever look at an old phone handset, it's got those little holes in it, in the speakers. That's kind of what it looks like. But yeah, so it's got those little holes in the molding. So they might even manufacture the tips for Sennheiser, these manufacturers. But where is it at? Must be one of the foams. Let's see. Sorry, bear with me just 1 second. Yeah, here it is. So you can see they messed up in the manufacturing process of this foam tip, and all the flashing is inside. The flashing is basically the unwanted material. They call it flashing, but it's like the stuff that they cut off of the mold or whatever. But anyway, yeah, you can see it's stuck in there. Let me see if I can pull this out real quick. Sorry, there's some letters and like resin and all kinds of stuff on these. Yeah, so here we go. So that was inside the tip. So obviously there aren't any like quality checks or anything with this, because it's not a legitimate product. It's just fake. But yeah, so anyway, so we have the little manual here, or quick start guide. Again, you can look for any kind of misspellings or whatnot. I would really like to have an original set, because I would really like to find, it'd be like an Easter egg hunt to find all the difference in misspells and stuff, misalignments of letters and spacings and whatnot. Be kind of cool. But anyway, we have some specs here, and I don't think any of these are real. So this like driver here, I found the driver on AliExpress. I'll put a link in the description. But it is definitely not a legit driver. The driver that they're using is like the cheapest, off-the-shelf, generic kind of TWS or whatever you want to call it driver. It is definitely not a Sennheiser driver at all. I've seen Sennheiser drivers that go into these, and they are way better looking than the ones that are in this. So anyway, but yeah, so we got all this crap. So you don't know how much of it you can trust, how much of it is fake. But they went a very long way to make these look legitimate, but they are not. I very much assure you these are a fake. So then we have this cable here. Let me just unhook the IEMs themselves. Oh, come on. Oh, Jesus. Hold on. Sorry, guys. There we go. Woo! That was something else. So we have the cable here, and like I said, these could be legitimate too. They look pretty nice as far as the quality goes. The molding and everything looks pretty decent. The connectors seem pretty decent quality. I mean, you just saw how hard it was to detach from that earphone. So yeah, it could be legit, or at least made by the same factory, but just forget what they call it. But it's essentially night manufacturing, where the factory is closed and they pump out this kind of stuff whenever people aren't looking and nobody's around, kind of thing. You know, only the owner knows what's really going on. But anyway, so we have this holographic sticker here, and again, this is probably the cheapest part of this cable here. So I think if anything, this could be a replacement cable that they just tacked a Sennheiser logo onto. But yeah, you see that logo is misaligned. It's not aligned correctly. Just looks, oops, come on. Just looks kind of cheap. So that's the only branding that you get on this cable, and it's on the chin cinch. So could be the same as the legit ones, but I don't know. I kind of doubt it. But yeah, so but otherwise, it's not a bad cable. It's nothing fancy. You see, and it's got the molding on the end there, and that looks decent. But yeah, so the cable's not bad. And like I said, you know, not to beat a dead horse, but they definitely went out of their way to make these appear legit, between, you know, all the packing materials and stuff. But I think it's mainly only a matter of these factories getting together, or somebody getting together and saying, hey, you give me this cable, you give me these tips, you factory give me this case. And they're all factories that make the legitimate stuff, but they're doing it on the side, kind of shady like. Now, a couple of the factories I know for a fact are not, they don't make the real thing. So like when we get to the shells, I'll show you. And if anybody has the real thing, I would love to see the comparison between the two. But I'm just going to pull this unit out because this is not taken apart yet. But I know for a fact on the real units there is a like a little paper dampener, or like a little piece of foam that rests inside the ear tips themselves, and there is none of that. These are completely see-through, so there is no tuning material inside these ear tips whatsoever. So that is kind of a red flag. And then we look at the nozzle, so we have the same shape, same profile, but again, if you look very closely, and it's kind of hard to see it on camera, but there is no, let me see if I can move this light up a little closer. Sorry guys, bear with me just 1 second. So you can see the driver inside, through the nozzle there, and on the real ones there is also tuning material that is underneath this plastic nozzle, and it keeps like dust and debris out of the drivers, and so that tells you that these drivers aren't quite good enough to get like adequate tuning or adequate sound in like the high end. So they just removed all the tuning material. So they removed the tuning material from the nozzles. I mean, from the ear tips. They removed the tuning material from the nozzles, and they literally just have the driver going straight into your ear. Now, another feature of the real thing is, again, I apologize. It's kind of hard to see these things, but there is. You'll see they got this weird thing. So it's like L1. Okay, why is there L1? What's 1? And the other, like for instance, this one says R1. Well, I think what they tried to do is cover up the fact that on the legitimate Sennheiser ones, and you'll see there's like some strange molding marks on the nozzle here. Let's see, can we see any on the other side? Yeah, I think there's another one right there as well. But anyway, on the real thing, it has its alternate tuning modes, and there is actually a hole. Whoop, come on. There's actually a hole drilled, and this little chamber, this little groove here, still exists on the real thing, but there's a little hole that vents out pressure. And what you do on the real pair is, so you put the tip on in a certain location, and you get like all the bass, or you get like full bass. Okay, and then it has an alternate tuning mode where you pull the tip up slightly. Okay, whoops. So you don't put it on all the way, you keep it up a little bit, and it exposes that little groove. Okay, so it exposes part of this little groove right here. And I think, so originally on the original pair, I believe they say left and right, but this one does not exist. This one is just some bogus feature that they added to make it seem like there's a reason for it. But what's one? What does one mean? Like, it's just left and right. There's not left one, right one. No, that doesn't make any sense. So anyway, so obviously we're missing that hole that goes into the chamber there, but we still have the features on the molding. So yeah, so anyway, so they did their best to try to hide that. And then we have the sticker, the little inlay here, and they look okay, but I think the real ones have either paint or maybe a higher quality metallic sticker, because these look, come on, focus, stupid, because these look kind of cheap. So yeah, so they look kind of cheap. Sorry, I'm having major problems with my phone focusing. But yeah, so, but as far as like the details go in the casting or in the molding, like they did a decent job. You do see some like stress marks from where they injected the plastic. And now here's the biggest tell that I found. Oh yeah, and then you have this IE300 mark on the back. This is the biggest tell for me. A couple of them actually. So on these little plates back here, this is how you access the wiring inside the shell. I believe these exist on the real thing as well, but they're not. Now this one looks decent, but the other side was messed up and like really sunken in, and you can actually see I kind of pulled it out, and underneath it were these two pins, these really long pins. But anyway, it just the alignment of it, and how it was like really sunken in, just, I don't know, kind of screamed fake to me. But the biggest thing that screams fake to me is when you look at the cover, you see these speckles, okay, and you see how small they are. Now this picture is enlarged to show the detail of it, okay, so like the logo and everything. I mean, you can see it looks a lot cleaner on the image. Now this is obviously photoshopped or a render or whatever, but you see how fine this material is, all these little specks and stuff, and you see how smooth the finish is. And then when you look at the real thing, like I said, you start to see these little stress marks, and then like I said, the sticker looks kind of cheap, looks kind of fake. But then you look at these little speckles, and it's literally just like they threw little dots of paint, but they're very spread out, very sporadic, and they're very chunky compared to what you see in the image, and it's really hard to illustrate on camera, but it doesn't quite match. Also, in the picture or in the render, the finish looks much more matte, M-A-T-T-E, so it's not as glossy or shiny. And in the fake, the physical product, you can see that the texture is very shiny, just very cheap plastic. Now it's not the cheapest I've felt, but it is pretty cheap. And like here you see how big the gap is in there. Those are things that I think would not be apparent on the real thing. I think the molding would be a lot higher quality, of the highest quality, because it's a Sennheiser product and they're commanding such a price for the product. But otherwise, it looks decent. And like I said, when you compare it to the IE900, it's pretty close, man. Like, they look pretty decent, and I can see why a lot of people are fooled. But they do not sound good. They do not sound good at all. But anyway, so this is the final part to the video. I'm not gonna post any graphs. Well, yeah, I think I already posted them in my like news feed section or community tab. So if you go into my community tab, you'll see the graphs that I posted of this IEM and how bad they look. And you can see the pictures of like the unboxing and stuff. But anyway, so this is the driver. This is that little plate taken off, and you can see that's just a cheap little connector put in there. And then where is it at? It's kind of hard to see because these wires are covering it up. But you can see they're just using a traditional round dampener, okay? And I know Sennheiser would not just put a round dampener on there because you can actually see in the molding, in this plastic molding here, there's like this L-shaped area. So something went here because there's like a little peg or a little stand with a little foot right here that something rests on, and I don't know if that's because the wires kind of tuck in there. But if that's the case, why have this little angled L-shaped feature right there? So anyway, but they were clever enough to put a little dampener right there to block off this hole so it looks like a legit tuning feature, but really it's not. It doesn't do anything. And so anyway, let me grab my little pick here and we will push the driver out. Okay, so this is the driver right here, and this is definitely, most definitely not a Sennheiser driver. I actually posted on my Facebook page the actual listing for this driver. But yeah, this is just the cheapest generic 7mm TWS driver, like off-the-shelf driver that they could get, that they put inside these IEMs. And yeah, it's just straight Hi-Fi, no you know, German engineering or whatever engineering, you know, you want to call it. And we can actually take this little ring out, and that is the diaphragm right there. So yeah, just a super cheap. They're not like bad drivers per se, but they're not good. Not especially not for a single DD IEM. They sound incredibly bad in this shell. And like I said, there's no dampening whatsoever. There's no relief for the bass. They blocked off that bass relief. So, I mean, they really fucked it up on this one. They could have probably got a decent sound out of these if they would have kept that that bass relief and put a dampener on there inside the... Oops. Shit, I can't get it out now. But inside this little nozzle piece here. So if they would have kept that little relief and placed a dampener inside and then put some tuning paper, you know, up inside the nozzle area there, they could have probably actually got a decent tuning out of this. Much more solid than what it is, but honestly, if you were to try to buy these and retune them yourselves, I do not recommend it. I advise against it because you cannot... It is a plastic shell, okay, and this seam here, this edge, is very tightly glued. There's a collar or a sleeve that's attached to this top portion that is press fit down into the body, and like I said, they're glued together, so it is like near impossible to get them apart. And you can actually see I had to kind of cut it open and squeeze the driver out. But yeah, they're stuck. I tried to get this little piece out and I could not do it. But anyway, yeah, pretty interesting. I mean, for 30 bucks or 40 bucks almost, they got to be making a little bit of money on it. But they can't be making too much. I mean, they're probably making about half, 15 bucks on the thing, because all these materials and stuff in the box and the packaging and the ink and everything, all that still costs money. But where they're saving the most amount of money is on these cheap shells and these super cheap drivers, because these things, in the listing, they're charging like $9, which is absolutely ridiculous. You can get these drivers for like 80 cents or like half a dollar a piece. Like they're not expensive drivers. Um, but anyway, yeah, but that was just the first listing that I saw, and I was like, hey, I know those. Um, I was like, damn, that's the same driver that's in the Sennheiser, the DIY. So, but anyway, with that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Do not buy fake crap. Now I will say the IE900 that my buddy sent me, these do sound better. They are higher quality, and the driver inside is higher quality. So they're not bad, but they're not good. They don't represent the good thing. They hurt Sennheiser every time you buy a pair. If they were to use the real drivers, or there was a way to put the real drivers inside them, you know, maybe I could recommend it. But that's teetering on a knife's edge there, because they're ripping off, you know, another company, and they're just blatantly stealing their product, and I'm not a big fan of that. But one thing I will say is there have been people. So the Sennheiser Momentum 2 wireless, the TWS IEMs. I stumbled into this little pocket of people who take broken Sennheiser Momentum IEMs, like the little earbuds, and they have the same, if not similar, driver to these. They use the same like housing and everything inside, so there's like a plastic housing that the driver sits in that gets loaded into this chamber. But anyway, you can buy these shells, just the shells, online, and you can buy like kits and stuff. I haven't seen them recently, but there are a couple of them out there where you can just buy this machined housing with the nozzle and everything, and you can put your own driver in there. But anyway, people have been taking those Sennheiser Momentum 2 drivers and loading them inside these IE900 or 600 or whatever shells, and making themselves a pair of IE900s or whatever. And as far as how close they sound, I'm not sure, but the drivers look identical. So but that doesn't mean anything. The material of the diaphragm could still be significantly different. The magnet, otherwise known, you know, the motor structure, could be different. The amount of windings, the impedance, the type of wire used, all that stuff could be different. But then again, if you take a look at the specs and check out like the sensitivity and all that, if it shows pretty much the same, except for the SPL, because the SPL is measured at 1 kilohertz. So if the tuning's different, the SPL is going to be different. But if you look at the amount of ohms and like the voice coil material and the diaphragm material, if all that stuff is the same, then yeah, I mean, you can just drop them in. So I might look into doing that at some point, finding myself a pair of broken Sennheiser Momentum or Momentum 2 earbuds, and then buying a set of these on AliExpress and then loading the drivers in there. I think that would be kind of a cool project. But yeah, apparently that's something that people do, and they make themselves like budget IE900s and stuff using legitimate Sennheiser drivers, but just taking an aftermarket clone shell. And I mean, it's MMCX, so you can pretty much use any cable with it. And yeah, for like, I don't know, maybe $100, couple $100, you can have yourself a pair of pretty legitimate Sennheiser earphones. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.